So different technique with system of projection, mechanical system, and after with electronic system, analogical or digital system. So when I was doing this kind of work, I've developed it in Canada 20 years ago, and after in CalArts, in California Institute of the Arts. My idea was just to exchange the wire of a puppet by, the string of a puppet by wires. So my puppet, I could control the puppet from a keyboard, and for me it was a kind of analogy which was rather simple to resolve technically. But at this time I didn't know that I was doing robotics. And I had the opportunity to show my work in Oxford in 2007, and at this time I met the roboticist Hiroshi Ishiguro, and during my presentation, it was the first time I had to give a talk, this kind of scientific talk. You have 8 minutes to explain what you are doing and to say something articulated, and during this talk I tried to explain the difference between my perception of what was robotics and what was puppetry. And as an artist, most of our work is mostly on representation. And for roboticists, the challenge is all the time, imitation. So during this talk, I can prove with my interfaces that just with few mechanical movement, it was possible to simulate emotion, and mostly to explain that what was the perception was more important than the intention of the artist or the programmer. So Hiroshi Ishiguro saw as a very big opportunity to use theater as a platform of research, and asked me to come to collaborate to the robot drama project he developed in 2008. At this time he asked Japanese director Hiroshi to work with him and to develop a repertory for robots and actors, which is today a kind of a gender, because everybody around the world try to or doing play with robots, and already in Japan, in our platform, we have 5 play in repertory. So this project started in 2008, and my main collaboration was to observe what was going on between the laboratory and the theater. Why to choose theater? As I explained, representation was an important point. But also, when we was working in a kind of laboratory display, all the time the scientist was in front of the robot, and the interaction was always frontal. Like it was nothing more, nothing less than kind of Turing test. I don't know if you know the Turing test, which is a test about intelligence and language, but with an anthropomorphic figure. So with theater display, we are getting closer than situation of everyday, more pragmatic or more colloquial, more and so instead to be like I'm talking in front of you, I start to propose to talk to robots like that, and not just in front of them. And this moment, I think, was quite important because it have completely redefined the relationship with robot, because the robot was the subject, but what was our research, it was social interaction, and the social interaction doesn't appear when you are talking just in a frontal laboratory situation. And what I like also in the lab, it was a transition, a moment of a transition. For example, here it's Geminoid F, which is the first android which have acted in a play. She have acted at least now in 3 plays, but there's 2 exemplars of Geminoid F. She have acted in Sayonara, a second version, and the 3 sisters. The characteristic of Geminoid F is she has 12 degrees of freedom, and she has a very limited expression, but she has a very nice smile, which is helped a lot in relation of the Geminoid of Professor Ishiguro, as you will see after. And she has specifically, you will see the comparison, an archaic smile, which helps for the empathy. So, for example, it's a moment, the first time she left the laboratory to go to Tokyo Festival for a first performance. And what is important also to understand is the first time that a robot is playing another robot. Most of the play you see with robots are just acting or imitating human being or act as himself. So, but this robot, she's playing a potential situation of a robot in the future, and she, in the play, she's in relation with somebody at the end of her life. So the question is how to naturalize social relation with robot, and this kind of image is about a very important issue. But it's not the subject of tonight, but I let you think about the future. So when I was in this lab, and because I'm coming from puppetry, I went to study Bunraku. At least it was the time I had the opportunity to meet the last master of karakuri in Nagoya. And I've been doing a few months in the karakuri Bunraku backstage to observe the manipulation of puppet to suggest how to transfer it after for robots on the play. So here it is an image of the situation in the play of Sayonara. In this case, the young actress, she had a fatal disease, and the Geminoid is talking to her during 30 minutes of the play. And there's one thing that I like very much in this play, and I think we've done our job in a way, and we don't need that robots doing other things that just be actor, because in this play this robot is telling a lot of poetry to the young girl, and I was fascinated how the public was attracted to see a play with robots, but once there was in the theater, there was listening to poetry. So most of the time today there's less and less people going to theater, and if we bring robots in theater and that attract people just to listen to poetry, I think that's enough. We've done our job as a roboticist. So and also the fact to think really as a situation of a robot as an actor, it's quite important, because as I say before, what is very heavy in robotics, it's imitation. And to do imitation, it's not just the appearances like those androids, it's also the behavior, the gesture, the posture. So to have a complete presence of such an android, we have normally heavy programmation. In this case, it's teleoperation, I will show you after. But if we think about interactive robots in the future, programming is heavy. So what theater bring to robotics, it's mise en scène. We can direct robot. We can decide what just few movements and not try to imitate all the behavior of human being. Movement like and my work in this case is just to induce very unconscious movement to suggest conscience, and this way to create empathy. Because you create empathy if you have a relationship with an object which have a certain intelligence in a social relation. But robot is not such intelligence. So the idea is to suggest unconscious behavior, which is theater, like that, like that, like that. Small movement of 3 seconds or 7 seconds, very short in space or very short in time, very easy to program, and through that suggest in your perception that they have a conscience, which they don't have yet. And during a long time they will not have a conscience, as we can imagine in science fiction. So it's a display in the laboratory. It's what they used to call magician dolls. Well, there's somebody which have motion capture of the expression of the face, and through the motion capture they control the robot in another space. So it's a kind of experimental display we use in the lab, and we apply this in theater, and it's just to experiment social behavior, and in the future maybe this social behavior will be in interaction with a cognitive system, okay? A robot with a big computer behind, and not just somebody manipulating mechanics device. Here it's at the end of the play, so with the director Okisai Kata. He's changed completely the contemporary theater in the 80s. He had invented a style they call the colloquial theater, which is very similar with Beckett theater, and also the actors are now speaking in the front of the public, and they are not speaking always very loud. It's a very natural situation of everyday life, and so it's why it's very interesting to have play direct by him, because it's very close from everyday life situation. So what I said before about her smile, you can see she has this very nice smile, and we can recognize, as roboticist Masayi Homori suggests, this smile in different Buddha, especially the Bunraku. This one is a national treasure, which is in Kyoto, in Kyoto Temple, and there's other one in Nara. And if you see this smile, we can recognize it's some of our sculpture in Occident, like for me as a French in the Archange Gabriel at the Cathedral of Reims, or if you look to the Joconde, she has this kind of smile, or some sculpture from Greece, and if you look to your own sculpture tradition, maybe you will recognize this kind of smile, which is a very natural, universal expression, and help for empathy and to suggest life in sculpture in this case, or in painting. And there's also very characteristic things, which is the Zazen position, which is the eyes of the Buddha off, closed, off, open, which suggests that he has a spiritual interior life, and at the same time a relation with outside. So through those, I show you, through the Bunraku, for example, the tradition of puppetry, through the tradition of karakuri, as you observe in the movement of the face, the face don't change. In automaton tradition in Europe, our automatons move the eyes to give more effect of presence. The automaton in Japan just move the head. But here also you can see through this expression a very strong effect of presence. So I've talked about unconscious movement, so all these things, expressions, unconscious movement, are a suggestion of effect of presence. And it's a very big challenge to, in robotics, in this idea to create empathy with those machines. So you can see, for example, it was the actress you see in this image. She's Minako Inoue, which she's manipulating backstage with an engineer, the actress, but before the play, she's going on stage, she takes care of the robot, she takes care about the position of the robot, the relation with the space, with the interlocutor, and it's very strange, this relationship, because it's very intimate and kind of fetishist relation with the robot. And there's those kind of moments I like very much, the everyday life of the robot, because sometimes you catch situations that or it's very pathetic, or you feel a moment of loneliness, and it's during the rehearsal the robot by yourself. Also, there are some trick. We are in theater, so we put shows that seem that if she can equilibrate herself, and also very light clothes that can move with the wind or with any very small movements. So it gives more effect of presence or realness. So, and you can see under, she can't walk, under her body, under her clothes, it's just polyurethane. And, but this one is very interesting because she has all the motors inside. And when you touch the hand, for coincidence, they are very warm, like a real human being. And so sometimes when people touch the hand, they are very surprised because they are warm like a real person. And it's to illustrate what I was saying about effect of presence. I like to take the example of Mona Lisa, because most of the time we think, for example, the Japanese like very much Mona Lisa, so we think, oh, there's an interaction, maybe the smile, as I explained, or the gaze of Mona Lisa. If you move in the space, she continues to look at you. But I think there's something more important we never talk about. The most important interface of our body is our skin. So when you see the right hand touching the left hand, it's kind of for me, I think that the right hand have a conscience, give an idea of the conscience of the whole body, because she's touching the skin, and the skin is one envelope of the body, and she's also touching the clothes, which is another envelope of the body. So those two hands are already very significant for me, or very strong example how you can suggest a presence. If I put a puppet on stage, and at least we use it for the Gemini, sitting like that with the two hands, which is a natural posture for a woman in Japan, a little bit in front with the two hands like that. If suddenly I put the two hands like that, the effect of presence, it's very, very, very simple, very tight detail, but just this makes a lot of difference. immediately your perception, or inconsciously you have a perception completely different of maybe expression also. But for me it was fundamental to give attention to this kind of detail. So at least the Three Sisters, it's not exactly a Chekhov play, but he referred to Chekhov, and I thought it was interesting. The Chekhov theater is exactly what we try to do. It's to give more importance to the presence, to what's happening between a dialogue than in the dialogue. So all the silence, all the moment, the situation is maybe more important than the action, because as technician, as engineer, we always focus mostly on action, on movement. Robotics, it's essentially study of movement, but what is also important is the situation, it's the context. So here we have the familiarity, the robot look-alike, but you have to create situation to make it real. And here it's a picture last January with a new robot of Professor Ishiguro. His second clone like that you can have in both places where he's working in ATR, which is the Advanced Telecommunication Research International Institute, and the Osaka University. And in each place he's working, he's got his own clone. And I like this picture because it's very rare to have the two Geminoid, Ishiguro HI1 and Geminoid F. And I like this picture because we think that to figure that somebody is a real person, we always think that we need a lot of information. But when we are going to cinema, when there's somebody sitting in front of us, we have very little information about him. We have the hair, the silhouette, a little respiration, but it could be very easily a robot. It's interesting that to see in many moments in social life, we don't have a complete information about the other. And so it's a reason why Professor Ishiguro always joke and say to the interlocutor, maybe I'm a robot, you don't know what's there under my skin. So, thank you. I make it short to maybe if you have some question about this kind of collaboration and this kind of objects. I like this picture to finish because for me that's something very spiritual, and we don't really know if it's a real person and at the end of the play, some people sometimes come to see the robot, and it's very strange emotionally what's happening. Questions? Sorry.
So
yes?
How did people respond to the robot actress?
Sorry?
How did people respond to the robot actress?
Control?
No, how people who were watching the...
Oh, it can be a big audience, and it's traveling all over the world. It's about the kind of audience you are asking, or?
No, I mean the audience watching the robot.
Yes.
How did they feel about the movements, and did you do some survey? Or?
There's very different reaction. At least there's a list of questions that are given to the audience as a test for the laboratory, but for sure it's very different in Japan than in Europe. The fascination is not the same, and the relation with animism is not the same. But in general, there's a curiosity. There's another thing, like in magic, as it is studied very commonly in anthropology, you know the trick before the play. So you go there to confirm something. You are part of the illusion. You are a caution of the illusion, and but very quickly the people want to believe. That when you see first the Geminoid, you are surprised. The first second, you think maybe it's somebody. It's evident that depending on the culture, some people the confusion is 3 seconds, 10 seconds, and after you have you have this moment of confusion that's coming, but after you are very, you want to believe. So it's always a relation, I believe, I don't believe, I believe. And what we are studying, it's really those moments when the idea of what we want to put on stage is working. Is it a social object or not? Last week I've done a presentation in Strasbourg, and a person said, a French person said that, an object can't be social. No, I'm sorry, we interfere with object. I talk to you, if I have a microphone, I interfere through an object, for example, and your perception is different. So the object changes social relation, or part of, we are part of a dispositive. And when it's a robot, it's more complex, because it's anthropomorphic, this kind of robots. It's anthropomorphic, so you have a really different relation depending on each person, but in general, you have this social relation. I have no doubt about it. And in theater, I think it's working pretty well. The people accept the dispositive and accept the presence. It's what is important. It's not to program a machine. It's to create a character, you know. And what we want to do through theater is to give a personality to the robot, and not just a defined machine. It's something else. It's not intelligence, it's just a personality, just some habitus in the few kind of behaviors. And I don't know if I have answered to your question. Other question, or if you want, I go back on some few images.
Zaven, maybe you can talk about being present, because Ishiguro once claimed that for him it's not a problem to design a robot and make it look like a human. The biggest problem for him was it to make the robot present. Mm-hmm. So you have talked with Ishiguro many times, and you probably have got some kind of idea of what is his thoughts about that right now.
Well, the presence is the question of the presence is not only limited with anthropomorphic robots. We have to consider that those robots are telecommunication objects. So why we need presence? Because in our world, we are living in a complex world, okay? Even if we have an iPhone, we have to customize the use of the iPhone. But if I have a robot looking like a human being, I don't have to read a notice before to start to speak with him. I don't know many people in this room. We understand each other in English. I don't know if you understand easily my English, but I don't have to read the notice before to talk to another person. So the idea to work with anthropomorphic object and it's to study presence and to facilitate this situation. So there's two lines. One is a futuristic point of view, like in the Swedish TV show. We can have in the far future, I can tell you, anthropomorphic robot, but they will help us to use things more complex. For example, you have a robot at home, and you talk to him, and he knows how to make working the last machine, coffee machine you will buy, you will buy, because you know how to use it, and you know how to talk to him. So it's easier to talk to a robot to use another robot or another machine. Or the other things is a new kind of telecommunication, which is the alphabet. It's a small creature you have in your hand. So instead of to have just a screen, if you have a creature in your hand and you talk to a creature, your conversation will be completely different. Because if you talk to a cell phone, you have a specific rhetoric. You have you speak in a very different way to be sure to have the guarantee to put you in the situation to speak with somebody. You know, with a telephone you don't speak with the telephone as we speak to each other. Okay. So with the alphaoid or the telenoid, which is a creature that you can carry like a baby, you have a different relationship with somebody that is far. It's different than Skype, because you have the effective materiality of another body. It can be in your hand, it can be in your arm. So in telecommunication, I think presence is a real important challenge immediately. In a far future, presence, it's important to interact with other machines.
So, when it, for example, comes to the design of robots, I once saw an interview with Ishiguro on Danish television, where he was presented for two politicians about which one was most easy to make as a robot. And then he answered something. Have you ever talked with Ishiguro about face design of robots? Is it more difficult to make a woman, or is it more difficult to make a man, for example?
I think it's not the question is not the difficulty. Most of the Japanese robots, or most of robots in general, are the people, or dogs, animals, children, or women. Okay, the people that have been forgotten by history during centuries. So why we have to interact with such kind of robots? It's because with animal, children and women, we have different attitude. They are more fragile creatures, so we establish a different kind of empathy. If you are in front of Ishiguro robot, if you are nervous, you will break it. If it's a woman, you will not break it. So simply, it's simple as that, I think. But it's more easy to create empathy with a feminine creature by social convention or because we are mammifers. Also, we have to say something very important. I say maybe it's in a very far future that we will have some Android around us. But at this time, the idea to work with Android to copy the human being is because we are very complex creature. So if you try to imitate a human being, yes, there's a mythology. The man always have tried to create artificial creator. We are in Prague and we know about that. But to copy our complexity need a high degree of technology. And when we can do this kind of creature, what's happening? We are fascinated. Sometimes, if in the case of Gemini F, we are encanted. And in Japan, I think that differently than for us, which are talking about concept, about abstract things very easily, they need to build object. And object which are perfect, animated object which are very precise, create encantedness. So, and when you are encanted, it's bring ideas to your mind. You start to think. And to build robot, complex robot as us today, make us thinking about many things, many questions in every area. Not only in engineering, because we have realized a very similar movement of the arm, not because we have realized a gaze or a smile, but we get encountered because suddenly it speaks about neuroscience, suddenly it speaks about mechanisms, suddenly it speaks about the presence effect. So there are platforms to think about the human being in all sense, in all directions. I don't know if it was clear.
Now you're saying that you are doing robot drama research. Can you tell something about where is it that robot drama research is so different from human-robot interaction research? Human-robot
interaction is not very common. It's just happening in laboratory normally. So robot drama research is just one step before it comes to us in our everyday life. So it's just there exists a gap between our representation of robots through science fiction, mythology, or cinema, and the real robots in the lab, which are very weak, very fragile sometimes, or very inefficient. So we need to put them in situation and to show them to an audience, but not anymore in robot show for industry. We have to demystify robots, and the drama is an idea, because at least we will have not anthropomorphic robot with us, but maybe robotic system. So to help elders, to help people with disease, with handicap. So we have to demystify the technology, and I think bringing the high level of research in a common place, I think it's a solution to fill this gap.
Where are the biggest challenges in robot drama research as you see it?
Where is the biggest challenge? It's empathy. It's really empathy. It's a condition to build communication, to build social relation, and after you said you will show the video with Paro, which is a robot which is a seal. The Paro is a perfect example of what is a challenge. As the psychiatrist Oliver Sacks explained in many of his books, we've realized that we fix memory with emotion. In his book, he describes some person which had suffered accident and don't remember their family, but they remember people they met 5 minutes ago. So memory is associated with emotion. In our brain, we fix memory with emotion. If there's no emotion, there's no memory. So in the case of Paro, it's a seal. We don't know social behavior of a seal. We never live with a seal. We know social behavior of a dog, of a cat, but not a seal. You don't have 4 legs, you don't have ears, okay? So it's like a stuffed animal, very basic robot, which make noise, vibration, and a little move. And when a person suffering from Alzheimer, for example, have this seal in the arm, it starts to rebuild an emotional link to an object. So it restarts to have to be in a situation that there's a space for emotion that can fix maybe memory. Maybe not fix, but maintain a determinate level of fixation of importance of memory in the brain. So I think it's really the perfect illustration of what is social robotic and what is empathy, and what can be the application for specific case of Alzheimer. But at the same time, in the film, I think they criticize also the seal can be a way to separate the people with a normal social relation with other people. It depends on the degree of use also of this kind of dispositive. Thank you. As a conclusion, like that we can see the film that will illustrate more my thought.
So, I'll ask some of you who would like to ask Zaven some questions about social interaction with.
Maybe some of you can talk about the workshop this afternoon. It was very basic social interaction, but because at the beginning it was just toy which have social behavior, and each of you have built a different machine, and each machine have a different character. So we have the opportunity to observe the switch from a social behavior of a group of the same machine to personalities with mechanical programmation, and I think it illustrates what I tried to say tonight more perfectly. Thank you.
Yeah.